Well, to talk about Iran's diplomatic turnaround, I'm now joined by John Limbert. He's a veteran US diplomat who was held captive by revolutionaries between 1979 and 1981 during the Iran hostage crisis, and then later served as US Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Iran. We've just heard that report on sanctions. What do you make of them? Could they be attributed to Rouhani's fresh approach? In effect, do you think they have worked?
Well, we really don't know, and really can't know. We do know that the Iranian economy is suffering. It's not doing well. It's not doing well. The question, what no one can ever prove, is how much of that is due to sanctions, and how much is due to chronic mismanagement.
We're seeing a very different attitude, very different approach now. How much influence, though, does the president of Iran really have? We know he's not the chief decision maker, especially on issues like this. So is Rouhani being pushed on this from above, or is it really his own initiative?
It's ironic, really, that when the current supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was president back in the 1980s, the reports are he used to complain about his lack of power and how he was overshadowed on one side by the prime minister, on the other side by the supreme leader at the time. What's pretty clear is the two of them seem to have a working relationship in a way that neither President Khatami nor President Ahmadinejad had with the supreme leader. I mean, they're both members of the elites. I think they understand each other's thinking pretty well.
So there is a big difference then between Rouhani and Ahmadinejad, because Ahmadinejad made exactly the same promises, but nobody seemed to understand him over this nuclear issue. Do you think then this new approach, this olive branch from Rouhani, will be accepted in the West because it's coming from a different person?
I think that has a lot to do with it. The problem, if you'll excuse the expression, Ahmadinejad, because of some of his intemperate language, because of some of his more bizarre statements, in the West had become radioactive, and basically whatever came from him, whether it made sense or whether it didn't make sense, no one would listen to him.
And what about the idea of the diplomatic relations, no contact policy between US diplomats and the Iranian diplomats? Do you think that should still be upheld? And has that really had any positive effect at all?
Not that I can tell. I never agreed with that. I mean, principle of diplomacy, you don't just talk with your enemies, and you don't punish. The idea that you can punish someone by not talking to them, to me, is quite bizarre indeed.
And talking about talks at a much higher level, Obama and Rouhani, do you think they'll actually get to meet each other at this UN General Assembly coming up very soon and actually talk?
I don't know. I'd give it about a 10-15% chance of happening. If it does happen, I mean, it may just be a handshake or a brief encounter. But even that, at the symbolic level, would represent a huge change from the situation of the last 34 years, when we and the Iranians haven't spoken at all.
Of course, so many people's perceptions are manipulated or influenced by the Western media. Tell us about your experience. I mean, what did you learn about the country and its people when you were there, and particularly when you were taken hostage?
Well, my ties to Iran go back a lot farther than that. They go back over 50 years. What's happened is very sad. I didn't to the country. I mean, what the country has done to itself, or what the leadership has done to these very creative, these very savvy people, particularly the women of Iran. That's very sad indeed. I thought we would have been talking to each other years ago, maybe not as friends, but at least as two states with common things to talk about.
And has your view changed a great deal since your experience, when you look back and now see the country as it is? Have your views changed a great deal, just briefly?
No, they haven't. I've always thought that we should be talking to each other.
And
I still believe that.
Sure, and I just want to ask you one very important question. You say we should be talking to each other. Do you think that these change of relations could have a very important impact on the crisis-stricken Middle East at the moment? They could have come at a better time now, or won't it make much difference? Just briefly.
I think they will. I mean, it's obvious that the U.S. and Iran do have some common interests in Syria, for example, and things to talk about over Syria. In a rational world, we'd be doing exactly that.
John Limbert, thank you very much. Great to talk to you. And for those viewers who've just joined us, I'd just like to remind them that, or tell them that we've been talking to the former US Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Iran, who was one of the hostages held in Tehran during the Iran hostage crisis between 79 and 81. Thank you very much indeed. Great to talk to you here on RT.
Thank you, Bill.